welcome, Richard. You have worked both for government and the United Nations and now for an NGO. So do you think this kind of mixed experience is useful in working in this field of arms control and disarmament in International Geneva?
Yes, there's no doubt about that. I mean, to have a perspective from all the different stakeholders is very helpful when you're trying to get people to work together or to find a solution to problems, and just understanding where people are coming from really helps in deciding how to design things and move things along.
And who do you think are the most difficult partners in the current situation? Governments or civil society?
It's usually governments, to be frank, but civil society also has problems, and we tend to assume, or some people assume, that civil society is one big lump, but civil society contains many different organisations with many different agendas, different priorities, and it's a mistake to treat them as a monolithic entity. Sometimes there are very subtle issues that you need to be aware of.
Now, in the current situation, of course, there are lots of tensions, even increased discussion about the risk of nuclear war, more than used to be during the Cold War. The US, accuses Russia and China of increasing their arsenals, their threats towards the US. So is it realistic to talk about disarmament in this context, or do we have to sit and wait for better times, or on the contrary, is it now more important to put some pressure on governments to do more?
No, I think now is the best time. It's at times of high tension where the disarmament has its most visibility and it's seen as being most needed. I think, while I'd never say that nuclear tensions are a good thing, it does really help us to generate public interest. It helps to put pressure on governments. It helps to make diplomats more serious about what they're doing. This is a situation now that I really think we can exploit to make the most of the concern, the worry, the fear, the energy.
There's been a lot of accusation regarding the new treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons, that it's a way of dividing international community, of creating a gap, and instead of trying to find common ground and compromise. So how do you react to this accusation?
Well, I think it's misconceived, really, and I don't think even the most radical proponents of the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons see that treaty as a way to divide or to pull apart the community. Quite the opposite. They see it as a way for non-nuclear weapon states to be able to participate more actively and more directly in the process of disarmament.
Now, on chemical weapons, we have a large organization with a treaty which is almost universal, which has been functional, effective for many years, but we still have cases of use of chemical weapons in Syria, which seem to erode this taboo of prohibition and non-use of this abhorrent weapon that's targeting mostly civilians. So do you think that there is a way of strengthening the system, of overcoming the divisions, the vetoes in the Security Council that prevent the international community from acting and stopping this use?
There may be. I think we have to be realistic. Syria is in the middle of a very nasty civil war. It's not going to be easy to do anything there. The allegations of well-supported allegations of chemical weapons use in Syria are very disappointing, given the earlier agreement and the fact that Syria joined the Chemical Weapons Convention. It's obviously something that should be investigated and stopped. But in an active war zone, the opportunities are obviously constrained. We may need to be patient with this one, but that doesn't mean we can let it go or forget it. I think the OPCW and everyone else involved should be doing whatever they can to get access to the sites, to collect any evidence they can, even if that evidence is just the testimony of victims. get the evidence, keep it, and when the war is over or when the arrangements, the situation is different, then we can look at an appropriate investigation. But it's a very nasty and difficult situation. I don't think people should be dismayed. I don't think it amounts to the taboo being erased. If anything, it's reminded everyone of the importance of vigilance against return of chemical weapons.
Do you think there's a chance that those who have been proven actively engaging in this use of chemical weapons, whether they are part of the irregular forces or non-state actors, will eventually be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court?
I would hope so. Again, it depends what happens with the war and what state Syria is in when it finally concludes. I would hope that there is interest and determination in the international community to follow up these attacks and to make sure that people are brought to account if they possibly can be.
Don't you think that it could be used as a deterrent if the threat of prosecution was really stronger than what it is now? This could act as a way of promoting restraint on the part of those people.
It may do. I mean, that's a broader issue. To what extent actors in the middle of a conflict influenced by the thought of possible prosecution years later, I don't know. But I just think a lot will depend on what happens with the war. I mean, for example, if the war is settled with a series of political deals and exchanges of immunity and so on, which is entirely possible, then it may be that no one can be prosecuted. But that shouldn't stop the relevant parties now from preparing and collecting evidence and being ready to follow it.
And just a final word on the Arms Trade Treaty, with its most recent international instrument in this field, trying to regulate the trade in conventional arms. Now there are accusations of some exports from some Western countries to the Middle East, for instance, which would be inconsistent with the obligations in the treaty because those weapons are used against civilians or to commit war crimes. Do you think there's a chance, based on this new legal framework, that governments involved in such exports will be sued by people from their own countries, civil society, NGOs, or human rights groups?
I mean, it's been tried. I think a group in the UK took the UK government to court over exports to Saudi Arabia, but failed. The judgment went against them. I'm not sure if they're appealing. But more generally, I think the ATT, the Arms Trade Treaty, has some potential to act in this way, but so far that potential hasn't been exploited. I think a number of states and certainly a number of NGOs are very disappointed with the way the treaty has worked so far, with the discussions at the meetings of states parties, for example. They would expect that these meetings would be a place where these kinds of concerns and allegations could be raised and responded to and assessed. That's not the case at all. We see the states parties still very much focused on administrative matters and setting up the treaty, which, okay, it has to be done, but there are some substantive matters that need attention too. So we'll see how that develops. Again, we may have to be patient, but I can imagine if we get to 2 or 3 more meetings of states parties and still no country is raising concerns or raising specific allegations to discuss, then I think you'd see an NGO push to do something about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.